5 years had passed since Artaxias declared that the kingdom he had been ordered to rule by the Seleucids was now independent and his own. He secured ancient Armenian territory on the Caspian coast and forced the remnants of their old masters, the Medes, to bend the knee. So that history could not repeat itself, Artaxias now sought to unite the surrounding kingdoms into a coalition against foreign empire builders. Only then would free Armenia be safe, and its people allowed to see what kind of world they could make for themselves. Artaxias was willing to endure much for this ideal, and therefore his followers were forced to as well. You used to ask me for help with your mathematics all the time. Don't remember you ever going to the lectures, actually. Because they were in the evening. Waste of the courting hour, it was. Well, that matters not, for who needs to know circle theorem to see our current predicament? We're not going back, Sin. They have over 3,000 men behind a wall. I made a deal. The Iberians want you to die so they can take those ports. Ports where Roman and Seleucid alike are said to loiter. Who knows what else they will scheme against us then? Go back yourself if you're so scared. This is about proving something, so I don't care if it's difficult. I would be gone in a flash if my footmen hadn't got blight from the chill. Many more will die before you see the inside of those walls, my friend. That is the price of independence. More than what the Seleucids were charging. You wanted free Armenia more than anyone. What do you want now? I want to live to see it. Just like all the men who rushed to your side. Just have to work harder. Hello there, welcome to Wings of Eden episode 2. So right now we're trying to fight Colchis, the only reason being that Iberia wants us to, and we want Iberia to like us, so here we are, but there's a pretty major problem. The place where we have to stand to besiege their city is an attrition zone during winter, only just, it's right on the edge, and that means we're losing men fast conducting this siege. However, I decided to keep it going and just see how bad things really got. However, after taking attrition both walking up to the siege location and then waiting in it through winter, we've lost about half of our army, so clearly this siege isn't going to work. We need many turns in order to build the siege equipment we need, and because this mod is only 2 turns per year, that means many winters will pass by before we're ready to assault the city, and overall we're going to die long before they do, even though they are running out of supplies. Because it's summer now, I decided to wait another turn to see how their lack of supplies would affect them. You can see they are also taking attrition now, but they're probably going to live longer than we are, that's the guess anyway. We've got a few siege towers and rams, so if we're going to attack, the time is now. The problem is their army is bigger than ours and better than ours. It outclasses us and they'll have walls and towers, so overall looks like it's going to be a very difficult attack for us to make, even though the balance bar is somewhat even. Given all of that, I eventually decided we're going to have to cut our losses on this campaign. We're not going to be able to storm the city like I thought we could and just quickly subjugate them to satisfy our plan for Caucasia. We're going to have to give up. Even giving up isn't a free option here because we immediately run into the attrition zone, and to get back to our territory right now we have to run through an attrition zone. There is a place we could stand on the north side of the city and besiege it without taking attrition, but there's no easy way to get there because of the zone of control of the city stopping us from moving in the area. So ultimately, this whole plan has been a disaster. I'm going to rush back home, taking even more losses, and now start replenishing. One of the big issues we have in this campaign in general is that we can't make anything much better than the army you see here. This is pretty much what we've got. There is a unit available in our roster here, a heavy infantry unit, but we can't make it at the moment. Even when I clear out some space here by getting rid of a few levy units, we can recruit everything except that one thing. I still haven't worked out actually what the requirement for recruiting that swordsman unit is, but we could really use it. Much later on we'll be able to recruit some heavier units. If we get some more tech, we can make regular cataphracts, and we can make Romanized infantry at some point as well, which probably will be the versatile infantry unit we need to replace all of our levy spears. But right now we are just straight up weak. Colchis very kindly offer us a peace treaty despite our very poor performance in the war against them, and they're even willing to pay, I guess just because our kingdom is theoretically stronger than theirs. They're going to offer us this money. However, I'm going to decline it. In a regular playthrough that would probably be a good idea to take, but I'm really trying to get diplomacy points with our neighbours, so I'm going to keep the war going just to impress Iberia. Clearly, to achieve anything against Colchis, and in the campaign in general, we're going to need a better military, and while we can't make one that's stronger man for man, we can make one that's bigger, so I'm starting a second army. We get the perfect general to lead this second army. He's really good as a commander, and his selection of traits make him quite bad as a politician, so he'll both be good leading our army and unlikely to rival us or undermine our dynasty's authority. A perfect second in command. So we'll give him an army and start building something up so that we can at least spam numbers and try and use that as our advantage. Shortly after this there was some good news. The war between Iberia and Ardan, our two neighbours in Caucasia there, has finally ended, so now we can officially make friends with both of them, which will be great and take us one step closer to having our whole allied bloc control that province. I expected to see your famous King Artaxius, born of the sky yet patron of the earth, the first free Armenian, blah blah blah. Waste of tablets sending me that nonsense. I apologize for the misunderstanding, and will communicate your grievance to the relevant authorities at my lord's court. Great. So you have a reply to my offer. I am pleased to announce that we do, good king. We have discussed the matter at length, and have decided that, with the balance of things taken into consideration, and with the weight of all requisite obligations fully measured, the count of coins suitable to accompany a formal military union is in fact that described in the following passage from our last meeting. Speaking first here is the king, who said that he values partnership with the mountain peoples as much as he values his horses. After an in-depth assessment... How much? 1,500 gold coins, to be checked and weighed at both ends by an appointed party of overseers, numbering no less than 5 members, to be selected by the process described in the following passage. I agree, all right. Send your men to help me, and I shall join your king's coalition. That is all that needs to be said. There was an additional stipulation detailing the needs of Artaxius's royal house to communicate separately with Colchis on certain matters, with the rights to secure, on grounds of their own choosing, separate peace without arbitration from other parties or stakeholders. Yes! Just shut up and go! Wonderful, good king. Just wonderful. With these deals, attacking Colchis just got a lot easier. We can now move through Iberia's territory, and with Iberia besieging Colchis, the zone of control around the city is gone, so this makes available a route around the edge to get to the non-attrition zone on the other side, where we could then ourselves safely wait around and participate in the siege. However, because it's winter right now, I'm not going to move since we'll lose troops. I'll just fortify my position. Couldn't even find anywhere in Iberia's territory that didn't have attrition. Also, it seems it's a very attrition-y area, the Caucasus. Some good news is that we're now going to get on and research cataphracts, which will soon unlock the ability for us to get some heavy cavalry and make our armies much more powerful, also much more expensive. Now a really interesting deal comes up from Colchis. While the siege is still going on, they offer to be my puppet state if I pay them So we're going to certainly take a deal like this, because this is exactly what we wanted from this, and it means they're going to be our puppet state rather than being occupied by Iberia, which is a little bit better for us and gets us some money as well. Also, it means the balance of power in the Caucasus is contained, so these factions are less likely to be warring with each other. Overall, pretty good stuff. So now we've kind of achieved our objective, although there are some additional stages we'll need to go through. We've got a minor famine at the moment for unknown reasons. Your food supply does fluctuate with the weather. There's a random weather event each season which changes how much food you get. So we're not food rich enough that we can guarantee we're not going to have famines, which is a bit annoying. Anyway, so here we can see we don't occupy Caucasia technically at the moment, and that's because Ardan and Iberia are our defensive allies, not our military allies or puppet states, and that's what you need in order to count as occupying territory when it comes to victory conditions. I can get a military alliance with Ardan right now and even get some money out of it, so that's a good start. Iberia don't trust us enough, so I was unable to negotiate anything with them, but we'll come back to it later. We just have to get it at some point now and hope they continue to like us over time. As for dealing with the food situation, we can't really upgrade our food production at the moment, just because of how Attila's economy works. There's no way to invest in food, but what we can do is use an edict to import food, meaning we make a bit less money but get extra food each turn, and right now that's a fine trade-off. I actually can't bring my army home because I'll take attrition due to our territory being in a state of famine, so I'll need to wait in Iberia's territory, although I do pop over the border since we can get a blacksmith upgrade and give all of our men armour, giving them some extra defence against missile attacks. I'm pretty sure it doesn't affect melee attacks. We need to do the same thing with Macaries. Luckily we can use our Media and Britannia puppet state to get out of the famine, after picking up that armour of course. Next, we need to work out what we're going to do with our military. We've secured our border in most directions. Now we need to start looking to the west, really. Over there are two small one-region factions, Commagene and Sophene. Both of these factions are puppet states of the Seleucid Empire, and they're also technically part of Armenia, part of Greater Armenia, I suppose, because they were in the old Armenian kingdom but were split off by the Seleucids, I believe, and for the purposes of this game they're considered as being in other provinces, but both of those provinces are victory provinces for us. In my arbitrary rules, I'm allowing myself to occupy both of these cities because they're technically part of Armenia. You can even see their garrisons are just Armenian armies to represent this. So that's what we'll have to do next. The issue with that plan is it means we'll be up against the entire Seleucid Empire officially, since they are puppet states. We'll end up at war. I thought it would be a longer time before we actually fought the Seleucids, but as it happens we have actually secured everything else, so this is all we need to do now. I'm going to start the war in a slightly roundabout way in order to improve our relationship with Trapezoros, one of our other neighbours. I get an alliance with them and some military access, which is always handy, and now I can use that alliance to join their existing war against Commagene, Sophene and the Seleucid Empire, and that way I'll be able to leverage something in a treaty and get a bit of money before we get this whole thing started. Is it so much to ask that people bound by blood answer to their own king? No empire would let you believe such a thing. The Seleucids have our cousins cowering in fear, unable to grab the hands we stretch out to them in case they be chopped off. They did the same to the old Medes, and they want to do the same to the Greeks on the Black Sea coast. Too bad they didn't realize that when all of us work together, our freedom is guaranteed. We shall march into the lands that belong to our people, and remove anyone who belongs up some pompous Macedonian behind. Damn you, Sin, making me say these things. The world will see that we can be whatever we want to be. In liberating those the Empire hoards for tax and toil, we shall become stronger, more free, more righteous, and in doing so we shall ensure that all people everywhere know the way to throw out thieving conquerors. Let us begin the march, and swear on the waters of Van that we shall not return until Armenia is whole again. I lost some diplomatic reputation for starting this war. I think I must have had a trade deal or maybe even non-aggression with someone in the alliance that we're declaring war on. It doesn't matter too much because our reputation will just come back over time. Now, as for the war, we're going to make the first move. I was initially going to send both of my armies to attack Sophene, but then I changed my mind at the last second and decided to have Artaxia stand on the border with Commagene and try and do an ambush, because they have an army in their town and it would be much easier to attack the town if the army wasn't in it. So we'll hide and see if they come to attack us. There are no such considerations to make with Sophene, so Machares can go and start this siege. We'll need several turns to get our equipment together before we can do anything here, so we'll just leave him to it and come back to check up on him later. Here's the next turn. Commagene didn't do anything, so our ambush plan didn't work. However, I also completed the construction of the building that gives me ballista recruitment, so now I can actually make some siege engines and go right into the attack, destroying their towers and walls from a distance, which might make things a bit easier than trying to use siege towers and letting the enemy towers explode and kill my men, that sort of thing. So I am going to wait now until that's done. We were forced to declare war on the Alani by our Ardan allies. We want to keep the alliance going, so we'll just have to join that war, come what may. Now here we are sometime later, after the ballistas have been recruited. Really just nothing happened, so now it's time to go and make this attack. The enemy army's still inside their town, so it will be a harder attack than usual, but the balance bar still looks okay. We will spend a few turns making some regular siege equipment as well, just to enhance our attack. Going in with just ballistas might be foolhardy because they may not actually have enough ammunition to break down the walls or break down many towers. It tends to vary from mod to mod, and I haven't tried it yet in this mod, so not going to take any risks. Anyway, now jumping back over to Machares, he's got a load of siege equipment. The balance bar's gone really far in his favour. Some of the enemies have died of starvation during this time. But I am going to be sporting again and make this attack just because, again, I know my composition and the weakness of my attacking units will make this more difficult than it looks. Before anything really happens, we're going to make use of our archers. They won't be very useful once we actually go into the attack. But because the enemy didn't have archers to keep us away from the walls, we can walk somewhat close, trying to stay out of range of the towers, and here and there drop arrows into enemy formations. It's not an especially powerful attack, but we can do it for ages. We can take our time and use all of our ammo, and slowly but surely we will inflict damage. I liked this shot here. That guy got hit in the back by an arrow and turned around, almost wondering what it was, but then he went back to his business. So yes, all we need to do is wait a very long time to kill as many enemies as possible, with the main objective being to overcome the fact that the enemy have more melee troops than us. We've only got 5 units of low quality melee troops, which doesn't guarantee anything when making a city assault. So we'll just wait and go in the safest way possible, doing this the patient way, bit by bit, destroying the enemy. Is our supply of arrows beginning to run low? Not as such, General. Then it is with the utmost regret that I must decline your noble request. It is quite within the established operational boundaries for our men to experience boredom, especially if by virtue of their patience, enforced or willing, the enemy forces are made to endure not only the same period of inactivity, but one during which our long-range assault will constantly endanger their lives. The longer everyone waits, the better. The men are getting hungry just waiting, General. They'll lose their nerve if we just sit here. Those arrows are mostly just hitting the walls anyway. While that is an astute assessment, not all are fated as such. Even a single scratch against the enemy can be considered a desirable outcome from a volley of 1,000 arrows. Bit by bit, the battle is turned. Slowly, methodically, everything under control. Time being abundant, and everyone remaining perfectly calm. Fine! We'll wait! Wonderful. Just wonderful. One day I do actually send the siege towers to make an attack. The enemy moved their archers to try and stop me from doing this, but it was too little too late. Now our levies will jump out and be able to fight with the archers in melee and easily start to their attack on the town. The other enemy Armenian levies are nearby, so we'll have to fight them soon, but as we saw, they've already been weakened by arrow fire, so just sending in a single unit there shouldn't be too risky. This other unit's enjoying no resistance as it takes a bit of the wall further along, and on the other side of the town, the same thing is happening as another siege tower deploys onto undefended wall. They'll need to get rid of that tower so that they don't slowly get killed, and what I wanted to try was moving the whole unit down through the tower first so that the explosion of the tower doesn't kill them all, and it sort of worked. They didn't all make it in time, but we did minimise the losses there, so that's the way to do it. They're now going to be facing off against the enemy general and his cataphracts, or more specifically, just sit in the corner and hope that the enemy general doesn't attack them, because if he did, those levies would go down right away. Our attack on the other side of the wall, other side of the city, has been stalled since the enemy are now properly resisting. Some skirmishers fighting our second unit, and our first unit's dealing with the levies in the area, but they are going to enjoy the bounty of the archers' work from earlier, as we said. Nearby, I've got some skirmishers opening a gate with a ram. The ram then explodes in traditional Attila fashion. They're also trying some really cheeky trick shots up onto the wall. Not sure that's going to work. So those skirmishers are going to run through the gate and capture it so that the two gatehouse towers aren't contributing to the fighting on the wall. That's the idea there. Soon though, the fight on the wall is over. We were able to rout the enemy since their low numbers made them have low morale even when the fight started. That meant even though we were outnumbered overall, we win out and can slaughter the survivors, capturing this corner. Over here, where we were fighting those skirmishers, we also won, but I'm now running away because we'd nearly captured the tower, and if we'd captured the tower while my two units there were around it, we probably would have lost most of those men, so I'm running away to plan another way of capturing the tower that won't kill all of my own soldiers. My skirmishers successfully destroyed the gatehouse towers, but this then proved to be a problem. I didn't realise this was the case, but you can't move down these towers once the tops are destroyed, so those spearmen on the wall can't deploy to ground level to attack the enemy spearmen, and when I'm giving them the orders here, while they're right next to the enemy, they're trying to run all the way around the wall to go through an intact tower first. That sucks then. It means my men who are already inside the city are in trouble. I've got some archers and skirmishers with no ammo hanging around and the enemy are attacking them. On the other side of the city, I've also opened the gate and I'm trying to force my horse archers in here, using some skirmishers to clear the way. Enemy spearmen were sort of blocking the path. The problem is that the enemy cataphracts finally decided to join the fight, and my skirmishers last approximately 0 seconds in that fight. Also, a lot of the horse archers weren't through the gate yet. I'm not going to let them fight, I'm going to keep giving move orders to try and force them through. But many of them will be killed by the cataphracts as they squeeze through the last remaining gap and try to get to relative safety in the corner with that third unit of levies, but even then they're not safe because their backs will be up against the walls. The good news is that something quite similar is happening on the other side, back where we were making our main attack, because Machares is now attacking with his cataphracts, and he's able to save our skirmishers from the enemy's levies, since the levies just die right away when we hit them. Here's my men trying to get down through this tower, with me also still micromanaging and hoping that the tower doesn't explode while our men are too close to it. We don't really need them though, to be fair, because just the combination of a few skirmishers and archers and the cataphracts was enough to clear out all that was left of the enemy infantry, meaning the city is now freed up apart from the enemy cataphracts, the hard target, who are currently killing all of my horse archers. Being up against the wall, as I said, is a big problem. They can't skirmish away, and in Attila in general, trying to move while you're engaged just causes units to rout or die. But eventually, my cataphracts move through the floating men and attack the enemy general from behind. He instantly routs, and the battle very quickly ends. So we won in the end. Quite messy, as expected. I think that's why I wanted to do it as a manual resolve, because it's always harder than it looks. We managed to avoid losing any full units, so that's great. I did expect to lose at least a couple there. While I'm allowing myself to occupy this region, as previously mentioned, we have the option to liberate a faction, Armenian nobles, and I'm going to go ahead and take that, just because holding a single region in a province you don't intend to hold all of is really annoying in Attila's campaign mechanics, which overall I just don't like. So it's better to have an ally hold it for you, especially because that ally will get free money and will get more troops from that region, so the region will now be defended by an army. But if we were occupying it, we probably couldn't afford to do that. So overall, this should be better, as long as the allies don't do anything funny. Macares will now return home to finish building his army. Actually, he doesn't have a full stack, and replenish the units he has. As for Artaxius' siege, something quite nice happened. The Seleucids sent a really small force to relieve the situation, which, while it makes the enemy force stronger, it turns this all into a field battle, which will be much easier for us to fight. It's still a pretty balanced engagement, maybe the enemy even have a small advantage. We'll find out at the start of the next episode. Thanks for watching this episode, and special thanks to all of the Officially Devon patrons for making this happen. Our war with the Seleucids is going to require quite a lot of work, so we'll be trying to mobilise all of our many allies in the next episode of Wings of Eden.